a future of retail Asia with Jun and Imran, powered by Aimazing.
Welcome back to the Future of Retail Asia, one of the world's top 50 retail podcasts. My name's Imran.
And I'm Jun. Today, we have Keith Chen from Faith Singapore. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us, Imran.
So Keith started out in catering and then became a business consultant at Fuji, and then he assumed the general manager of CN Singapore, a chain of Chinese restaurants. Moving on to e-commerce, he joined Groupon, progressing in various roles before they were acquired by Faith, where he then became the head of BD, head of sales, before coming to where he is today, the general manager of Faith Singapore. Quite a journey, yeah?
Yeah, thank you.
So you can definitely see he's got a lot of knowledge and experience running both offline, online, and understanding these various O2O strategies.
Very, very cool. I think we want to get you know a little bit more, right? So can you share with us why make you decided to move from the offline businesses from Fuji to the Groupon and Faith?
That's a good question, right? I have to thank my friend. In fact, it's my army buddy back then, right? So as you have Imran was sharing, right? I was from the F&B industry. I was so many years in there, right? Then was this one day, my friend came to me and say, "Hey, you want to try Groupon? You are in a restaurant. Groupon helps you market." Yeah, and then he said, "Hey, you seem to know the concept pretty well. Why don't you join us? We are hiring." I said, "Okay, it's a new industry. I don't know what it is, but I go on, right?" And I mean, everything else is set into history already. That's where that brings me to where I am today. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think we see that this online to offline, offline to online is very important in today's context, especially let's say in the context of let's say COVID and all that, the merchants suffering. I'm sure we've all heard many stories over the last 1.5 years, right? So we know merchants want to go digital. We know that people in the ecosystem are looking for opportunities to do so. How do you start, right? So what does Faith do? How do you guys help the merchants go digital?
Okay, so I think that question is really relevant today, right? And even as we are speaking, we are still going through, and the merchants are still going through the uncertainties of COVID.
Yep.
Yeah, with Omicron and the new variants that we don't know what's going to cause us, right? So before all this virus was happening, actually merchants already wanted to go digital. Yeah, however, coming from a retail and offline background myself, right, they always have the challenge of going digital because they know how to run their own business. But they never know digital, where should I market? Okay, I know, I go Facebook, I put some money into the ads. But then how do I get the customers to come back again? That's where, especially in the retail scene, right, you'll see a lot of companies, they invest heavily into like CRMs.
Yeah.
But it's a broken set of system together with their POS, their payments. Everything is isolated. That's how we came about.
Yeah.
And that's where Faith, then we decided to create a solution called Faith Pay. I hope both of you are already using it. Yeah, and that's where we try to create, to reduce the inefficiency of these individual systems by putting loyalty into it, by putting deals in promotions into it, putting gift card into it, right? So that merchants can run their business as usual and they use our platform to just manage that CRM, their digital part of the business. Yeah, that's how we see it.
But I mean, like from a merchant's POV, right? And I've talked to many merchants before. And they say, "Hey, my cashier got to manage this system lah, this terminal lah, that terminal, this platform, this app." Does it get very overwhelmed at points? How does Faith see your position in really helping the companies go digitally? You talk about Faith Pay and digital platforms, but this transition, how do you guys feel that you're unique in this space?
Yeah, great question.
Yeah.
So even today as we are speaking, the merchants are still feeling the strains. Why? Like there's delivery platforms.
Yes.
Yeah, then there's payment platforms. And among payment platforms, there are multiple payments.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly, right? So what we try to do is to consolidate multiple parts of marketing technologies together with payments, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like for example, let me talk about payments per se. Yeah, when we run retention, so on Faith you can tag, we actually access Visa, Master, Amex, Grab accounts, right? And then on top of that, we also launched something called the Faith Loyalty Program called FLP, right? Which we have DBS, UOB, Singtel Dash, and then we also have Google Pay. They can scan the Faith QR, and then the merchants can issue a cashback to retain these customers, whichever different payment mode they're paying with.
I see.
And then they manage the transaction with one back-end Faith Biz. So that helps them to elevate the pressure of, I need to manage one payment. And then retention wise, I need to talk to every customer. Let's say Imran, you are using Google Pay, and then Chen, you're using DBS PayLah. I'm using Faith, of course. Yeah, then they have to talk to three of us and say, do you want to be my member? Do you want to be my member? Do you want to be my member?
Right.
Then the stuff becomes very overwhelmed. So
Right.
what we're trying to do is to consolidate that retention piece into payments.
Right.
Then they just, you are paying through this Faith QR? Alright, you are automatically my member per se, right? You receive my cashback. And then on top of that, the marketing guys can run a deals campaign, a voucher campaign. They can run an e-card to attract customers to come into their store using one single platform.
I see. I think very interesting. You mentioned about like the offline entire industry or entire ecosystem is super fragmented. POS system, CRM system, payment system, and payment system. I think we know like there's a few different payment terminal on their counter, right? Yeah. So like I think one thing that if everyone is hearing about this podcast, if you are dealing with the SMB, FMB, and retail, you will know that like how difficult or how challenging for a company to support them, especially if they already know that they are want to go into the digital, but because of this so different fragmented system, cause merchant F&B, especially at retail, when they want to go digital, they were always facing this challenge. So just curious, like as for Faith, right, which part that you see will be most important? Is it the onboarding process, or is it because we need to design a product very easily for a merchant to understand, or which part, like how you see about this thing?
Right, good question. Because we were part of Heartland Go Digital, so we onboarded a lot of Heartland merchants, right? And actually, the two things that we need, you actually mentioned on point, that the onboarding process is super important, and it's not just someone calling you on the phone and then just giving you a guide through email. They have to handhold them, right? How to use the system, how you recognize the payment, how you cancel a transaction.
Yes.
Yeah, so those are important. Then number two, if you want to create a promotion, so today we have some elements of self-serve, but we realize that there is still a need to share with merchants like how to run a promotion, to advise them what works, because they are good at making their nasi lemak, but they don't know how to market, right?
Exactly.
So that's where we come in. And then on top of that, the system, because of the way we create the Faith Bs, the cancellation, right, it's all one touch, it's all mobile friendly. They can use the laptop or mobile phone, even using their own mobile phone to cancel a transaction or check transaction. So that also reduces their need to really be super ultra savvy to how to use a 20-step process, right? So we just try to minimize it to, let's say, a 3-step process. Yeah, how to check transaction, 1 step. Then how to cancel, press cancel, and then 2 steps to cancel a transaction. Yeah, so we try to simplify that process.
Right. So it's about helping the merchants understand what that process is, simplifying it for them. I think I've encountered many merchants in the past where they say, okay, I want to go into e-commerce, I want to run campaigns, and then they just don't realize the depth of technicalities and different systems involved. How could a merchant better prepare themselves to digitize, right? So like before I make the decision, before I say, hey, I get my little executive, and then okay, you go and figure it out. Like it's not just that, right? Typically, a lot more time, resources is needed. And what would you advise for those merchants thinking about this now?
If there's one thing I can advise or share about this, right, is that you must understand what you are, what goals you are looking for, and what's the impact you're looking at.
Right.
Then, because once you have mapped that, right, then you find a system that's easy to use. Something as simple as this. I came across business owner that said that, hey, there's so many queries coming, I don't want to answer the queries. Yeah. So we also have that as for Faith, right? If you notice the merchants, there's no queries coming. Either you buy a voucher or you don't buy, right? There's the decision pay is on Faith. Then e-cards, you want to buy e-card or you don't buy. You make a payment, you earn the cashback. You need to decide. You just make a payment, you will get the cashback.
Correct.
So we try to minimize that pre-purchase enquiries,
Right.
so that merchant just focus on running that piece of the business. So coming back to the point where then how do they make the decision, right? It's just what you want, and then what's the system that can help you to get to your goals in the most simple way. Yeah, actually Imran, you shared something that is actually luxury. Not many mom and pop shops, right, or the SMEs, right, have a marketing executive.
A manpower, correct?
Exactly, right. The business owner is the manpower. They have to cook their nasi lemak, or they have to sell their products.
I don't know
Place
how
on
many
shelf,
of
right?
these mom and pop shops or stores we know you want to do something, and then the owner say, okay, talk to my son. Like it's very common, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then the son will be like, okay, another one. Okay, let me listen to how it works, right? Yeah.
Actually, we talk to a lot of guests or a lot of people from this industry, especially focus on F&B and retail, right? They always mention, like, I think you point out a very good point, is that start from very simple process, let them to see the result first, and then they are more willing to invest more, right? Because if you talk to them like, oh, you need to do 20 steps for you to get maybe a huge goal, but they were like, wow, these 20 steps, I need to go for classes, I need to go for like some workshop, I like, maybe would be wait for. I think that will be very interesting, is like start from very simple and then let them to see the result ASAP. Then they are more willing like to do, right? Then the other, I'm a Fave user. So then I using like Fave from a payment. Then I saw actually during the COVID, you launched the e-card. So actually I can prepare to top out like $100 at 90. I pay $90, I can get a $100 cash card, right? So like maybe can you share like what kind of use cases like when during the COVID or when this merchant on board with you, how you start from a very simple and then value add, and the entire thing, like maybe you can give sharing like some of the use cases with us.
Okay, great question, right? Let me share before we start the product what we were thought of, right? So during COVID, what is the main problem for business? Cash flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody is thinking about how do we get more cash flow. Government is extending grant, which thank God, right? Singapore is doing that very well. But at the same time, then how does the merchant be self-sustainable? So that with that thought, that's why we started gift cards, or we call it e-cards on Fave, right? So what it does is that they allow customers to pre-purchase. Let's say Keith's runs a fried chicken store. Keith's fried chicken. You can buy my gift card, right? $90 for $100. So as a merchant, Fave will pay the merchant upfront. So Keith will receive $90 upfront, less of some admin fee, right, and transaction fees. So after that, then this cash flow is with me, but the customer have not visited me yet. So as the customer is visiting me, so they will then slowly draw down on the credits. So this way the merchant gets the cash flow, the merchant gets to like guarantee the customer is coming in, right? And then at the same time, they also don't need to pay a hefty cost. You look at the best example, Starbucks. They have a Starbucks card. We all were users or are users, right?
Yeah.
We top up $50, $100 there, and then they give you stars. But do you know that Starbucks invests hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to set up the system plus market the system? How many of our local business, not even SME, even the larger SMEs, right? Singapore business have that kind of budget to buy the system and then market in that way. So that's where Fave comes into play. We thought we have the users, we have the platform. We just create these value-added services and help merchants to run this, and they don't have to pay a hefty cost to get a system like this, and while getting the cash flow as well.
But at the heart of this is really value adding to the end customer, right? So I remember being like right at the beginning of the Fave journey. I think guys started out with deals, then your discovery, which are the deals or merchants near me, to the Fave Pay, to the cashback, now to the e-cards, and even now the buy now pay later. Like, how are you guys thinking around this whole customer experience piece? I think one of the biggest things that we see in retail today is people saying, hey, we must treat customers with a unified experience, right? So I think what do you guys see from Fave POV is that future of customer experience?
So based on, from a customer experience standpoint, from what we see, right, we realize that customers, other than just the experience while they are using the app, a single unified usage, right, there's one thing that they want also. They want to do, they have a super app, right? That's why the super app concept comes up. They want to do multiple functions within a single app. They don't want to download one app for deals, one app for payments, one app for gift cards. They say, I'm too many apps. That's the common thing. I go to the ground, I tell the customer, I don't want to download another app because I have too many apps. And for those watching this podcast, I check your phone. How many apps do you have? I have like 300, I think the last time I checked. I was like, I only use like 20 maybe. Why do I have 300 apps, right? So that is a problem per se that we see. And that's why when we created all these different products, we keep thinking about what does the consumer wants, what value they get, and then we add it in. Perhaps the consumer experience on the different product might be a bit different, but as long as it serves the consumer needs, I think we are okay.
So, then where do you see, right? Because we was just now discussing about the buy now pay later will be the big thing for the next year, right?
Yep.
So how you see like or maybe you can share with us like the data, how data play a important role in this buy now pay later.
So for data, that's a good question. So for buy now pay later, it's really about getting consumers to spend higher AOV with the merchants. That's from a merchant point of view, right? Because when you ask us, right, we buy a TV, choosing between $1,500 and a $2,500 TV. Yeah, you might opt for the 1,500 if you are paying a single swipe payment. But if you are giving an installment option of 3, I'm only paying like what, $750 or $800 per payment, right? So that's where then I might go for the better TV because I can stretch it over 3 payments instead of paying all at once. So that's what buy now pay later. That's the data that we give we collect and then help the merchants, right, to make a better decision point. Yeah, where we know customers, what are they activated by, and are they able to generate a higher AOV when they adopt the buy now pay later option. Yeah, because if I cover a little bit more about the buy now pay later product, right, it's a product that merchant have to pay some fees to take up that service. Then how do they justify the fees that it makes sense, right? Is when their AOV increases, yeah, they make more money out of that increased AOV that can cover the cost of that service. I think that makes sense for them.
I see. The AOV is actually average order value.
Yes,
right?
yes, average order value.
Or basket size.
Yeah, or basket size,
Or
right?
basket
Yeah.
size, depending on which language you use.
There's so many different translations of this terminology.
So I think we talked about the merchants, the customers, talk about Faith's position, and I think what we realize is that it's really part of this whole bigger ecosystem, right? So I think that's one of the biggest common denominators across all guests that come in, and they're coming from all sorts of different players as well, right? Like it is an ecosystem. COVID has shown that if anything, we must work together, right? And there's a lot of integrations, there's a lot of strategic partnerships, being built every day. On your side, from your POV, who are the strategic partners or buckets of partners that you guys look at in terms of building this ecosystem together with?
So that is a great question, right? So when we look at it we never look at it from a Faith point of view, but we always take the lens of our merchants and consumers. So first thing first, from a consumer point, what platforms are they using that would deliver more value to them, right? If we were to go into a partnership.
Yep.
Then number 2, for merchants, which partners do we work with to bring more value to the merchants?
Right.
Yeah, and some of the partners that we have worked with so far, right, if you notice from a payment perspective, we are working with UOB, like what I mentioned earlier on, DBS, Singtel Dash, Google Pay, even Grab as a source of fund within Faith. So we have that as a payment partner because we notice that merchants have a problem reconciling between and retaining customers across different platforms. That's what value adds to the merchants. And then for customers, now they can earn cashback throughout different payment platforms. That's a win-win-win situation. Then we also work with players like malls, like Landlease.
Yep.
Yeah, we have a agreement with them to run marketing partnerships. And that actually creates a lot of value for the tenants within the malls.
Interesting.
Yeah, and during this time, business are not great at the moment yet. Yeah, so that's where they can value add more to them.
Yeah, and you've seen a lot, I think, especially in the recent times where a lot of the mall providers or retail ecosystem providers are tying up with the apps and the merchants and creating a lot of joint promos. Yeah, so very, very much on the money on this.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's no longer a 1 + 1 = 2, right? When you have 1 + 1, like a mall and a platform like us, it becomes like 5, 10. Because we really multiply out
There's a multiplier effect.
Yeah, on the budget, on the kind of marketing reach that we can get to the merchants, I think, and the effects.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting. I think I still want to go back to one question will be the data. Like you mentioned, you work with the mall and you work with different party, right? So is it like the transaction data will be important for Faith, or like do you view like if Faith is able to get the transaction data, how valuable this transaction data Faith can benefit for, or actually that this is like not the Faith is looking at?
It's a great question. So data is important to us, but not because Faith requires the data, but it's because we can help the merchant to make a better decision on their marketing, on whatever actions. Because we have a system called Faith Beast. That's the backend tool. It's not just to cancel transaction, to check transaction, right? It's not reconciliation.
Yeah.
We also provide Faith Beast insights where we help them to analyze the customers coming in. How many are new? How many are existing? How much they are spending? And we also give the gender breakdown, like how many % of your customers are male, female, what are age group?
Right.
So with all this data, right, the eventual goal is that we help empower the merchants to make better decisions as they are marketing. Towards they're creating marketing actions, right, towards the pool of customers. And hopefully in the future, right, then with our reach and the customers who already transacted through Faith, we can help them to reach the customers again. Instead of using WhatsApp for one channel, Facebook for another channel, maybe I pay SMS for another channel. So that's what we want to do with the data to empower the merchants.
I see. I think, well, very, very interesting for this part, right? Because in this case, actually, we can view like merchant have one platform that actually they are able to reach out to the customers, right? So in order, like just now mentioned, I need to reach out to like maybe Grab, Sinterdash, DBS Pay, like UOB. So now everything I just need to using the Fave. So a lot of merchant actually, when we talk to them, like, or a lot of guests sharing about, is like, always the merchant have the concern will be like, hey, is it you are getting my data and then you try to sell my data to others, right? But I think what we are seeing from here is actually what is the benefit that we are able to bring back to the merchant. So if this is, the merchant is sharing the data to a company, like example like Faith, right? Faith is able to help you to know how to do more precise marketing as an example, right? If you want to run any campaign, which product you need to select, or like if you want to run a buy now pay later, what kind of thing that you need to do, right? So I think that will be very interesting is actually when we always talk about data, like maybe we need to look at the use cases. What is the benefit? Like Faith always looking at like what is the customer's benefit and what is the merchant benefit. I think that is the mindset is not like what is the company benefit. It's what is our customer's benefit.
Yeah, exactly. And to just build on that point, right? We also always believe that a merchant, customer first, merchant second, Faith third, right? So if we serve by that order, then platform like us can see success, right? Because eventually we don't own anything. Like Grab doesn't own cars. They own the to facilitate transport, right? Faith doesn't own the merchants, nor we own the customers. We just facilitating the customers to the merchants. And then what do we do in between to drive more customers to merchant? Or we drive the same customers to come back more frequently? Those are the filters.
The role of a two-sided or three-sided platform.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, okay. So thanks again for sharing that with us. I think we're coming to the closing section. We always ask a few questions at the end, which is standard. Number one, you have a mall operator in front of you and you have a retail operator in front of you. What would be your one piece of advice to each of them right now today?
Yeah, God, that's a great question, man. This is slightly below rocket science, but still. So if you ask me, right, it's collaborate. That's the one word. And why I say collaborate, right? I mean, like Imran we were sharing earlier on, right? It's no longer you stand alone. You can 1 + 1 equals to multiples, right? When you stand alone, even if it's a mall, your marketing budget is only limited. Because you as a REIT, you're behind the malls are the REITs, right? You need to make a profit. Then the merchant themselves, they also have limited resources. Then how do we work together to amplify the effects of our resources together? And then some of the merchants, honestly today, most merchants are more open to collaborating. Because why I say collaborate, Faith doesn't charge any upfront fees most of the time. Yeah, unless it's like a merchant that wants really a lot of exposure, we might charge some advertising revenue. But if not, we don't. That's not our main model.
Yeah,
it's the percentage of sales that comes to us.
How will retail change post-pandemic?
Yeah,
Download the Future of Retail white paper from our website,
So
Aimazing.co.
be open, and sometimes they're also worried about staff. Like, how is my staff going to take it? Taking another, it goes back to the start of our conversation, right? Can the staff take it? So many platforms, how do I manage? Don't worry, actually, by taking on more platforms, especially those that are commonly used, you're actually helping your staff to upskill them. If they don't learn at your business, they're going to have to learn somewhere else. I mean, no staff stays forever with the business, right? They have to transit, right?
or like a COVID hit and suddenly now all your transactions are cashless. Right?
Exactly, right? So sooner or later, you have to learn.
Yes.
Yeah, so instead of thinking of it as a friction, think of it as something that is helpful for the employees as well, other than just the business.
Yeah, actually, this is like really on point because I think there's so many cases of us going into the ground as well, and like you said, the systems are siloed, but actually many people's thinking surprisingly are still very siloed as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
And our last question we always will ask is, do you think the physical retail can still remain king?
Great question. Personally, from a Singaporean perspective, yes. Why? We are Singapore is a tiny island, right? 64 by 44 kilometers. That's all the space we have, right? So we still want to go out and shop. As much as I have a pair of twins at home, I get my Pampers, I get my milk powder online, right? Yeah. But I still go out and shop for every other thing. Yep. Because I like to go out there, have some things to do offline. I don't want to stay at home, right? Work from home is already at home. I don't want to continue to stay at home on my weekends as well. So I think retail is still king. But then, how do you create an omni channel?
Yes.
Super important. Then that's where we every one of us, right? Actually, you look at the entire digital economy. That's what we are trying to do. Digital economy. Nobody is going to say that online is going to be 100% of the market. Retail is dead. I don't believe that, at least for myself. I believe that there is a way to work it out together. Some customers just sometimes will prefer to pay online. Some customers will prefer to buy your products offline. Then how do you cater to the same customers both online and make it a very seamless journey?
And sometimes I want something live, and sometimes I want to just buy it in bits, right?
Exactly.
Like I'm the same customer, it's just at different times. Right?
Exactly right.
Yes.
So I think that's really cool. Thanks again, Keith, for sharing. We've sadly come to the end of the episode for today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Keith. For those viewing, if you have any questions for Keith, be sure to just comment in our socials. We'll forward the questions to Keith. I'm sure he will be more than happy to continue the conversation with you
Totally.
as well. So meanwhile, please find us on our social platforms, on Spotify and Apple Music as well, on YouTube, and see you in the next episode.
Right. Thanks.
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Thank you.
Right.
How will retail change post-pandemic? Download the Future of Retail white paper from our website, aimazing.co.